stand with those of us who have been directly impacted. It could be you. My name is Rachel Smith-mosel, and this is actually the first time I've spoken at a community-wide event publicly about the loss of my son, Brennan. It's fitting that I'm doing so right here at this beautiful Alki Beach, a place my son Brennan loved and spent most Saturdays, weather permitting, for 6 years right here in this spot. For Brennan attended religious school over there on Hines Street at the UCC and at Colony Shema. And his classmates voted year after year to spend their study time at the Alki Bakery that once was, where they had enormous cinnamon rolls. And weather permitting, they'd come to the beach, and otherwise they'd sit and they'd enjoy those cinnamon rolls and they'd study Torah together. It was here on this beach in this space that Brennan learned about the Kinder Transport. It was an effort during World War II to save the lives of children, orphaned, and in the clutches of the Nazi Holocaust. Brennan learned that some countries chose to close their doors to refugee children. America did that, and others. England, however, they welcomed those children, and they saved their lives. They saved a generation of Jewish children like my child. Armed with that information, Brennan, at age 11, decided that our family should become foster parents. So because of Brennan and his two amazing siblings, Kyle and Laura, over 50 children found safe harbor and a gentle place to land and call home when they needed it most. Thank you, Brennan. My first foster child was one of my students. You see, I'm an educator, I'm an assistant principal. My students call me Mo or Mama Mo because I'm not just on their case academically. I consider each of them my kids. I am an extension of your love for your children when you turn them over to me early in the morning and until you pick them up. I am there for my students, their families, in moments of great pride, and also for them in moments of crisis. I have helped families experiencing homelessness, job loss, poor health, mental health and addiction crises, victims of domestic violence, rape, and assault. I have supported families and my students, connecting them successfully with community resources. I have worked with students engaging in self-harm, students who had suicidal ideation. I've attended the funerals of my students. I've attended the funerals of the parents of my students. I have lost students to gun violence. I have personally shielded 30 students as gunshots rang out not 50 feet away from us in a school parking lot. And I lost my own son, Brennan, to a self-inflicted gunshot wound from a 12-gauge shotgun he bought legally here in Washington in under 5 minutes. That was after our 29-day fight against Kaiser Permanente to access mental health care for him. Brennan, he was a vibrant musician. He was 6'7" and loved to stick me in his armpit. He was a strong student. He was an avid mountain biker. He spoke truth to power. He was a devoted brother. He attended Evergreen State, and he had transferred to Portland State when in spring 2015, my mama bear instincts went off. I don't know what it was. He was excited about his band, taking off in Portland, booking into larger and larger venues. And I can't tell you that it was anything he ever said or did, but my alarm started going off. I sensed it. And I sensed it so profoundly that one day in spring 2015, I walked into my daughter's classroom at the school I was an administrator at, and I said, we need to go to Portland. And she thought I meant for a visit. But within 3 weeks, I had a job as an assistant principal in Portland Public Schools. I had renters in my home in Federal Way. And my son, Brennan, was helping us unload the moving truck to Portland. I took Brennan to breakfast. I said, okay, son, I'm here now. What is it? I can feel it. Whatever it is, we can handle it. We're a strong family. And Brennan told me, he said, Mom, I did something so stupid. I tried cocaine. It was offered to me before a gig. I was tired. They said it would bump me through, and I was dumb. He was so worried about being a financial burden to our family. Rehab's so expensive, he worried. But I was able to show him my Kaiser Permanente benefits package, which I thought was the Cadillac of insurance plans, for I'm a school administrator, right? I showed him, I said, I have 100% coverage, $0 copay for inpatient, outpatient addiction medicine. You can go to rehab, son, I've already paid for it, it's okay. I have 100% coverage, $0 copay for inpatient, outpatient mental health treatment. It's all paid for, son. We just have to call. I assured my brave, beautiful son. Brennan was relieved, he was hopeful. I held my 6'7" man-child in my arms, no shame, no blame, just love and support. We called that family meeting with his dad and stepmom, moved Brennan in with me, and Brennan called Kaiser. 51-minute intake completed. He talked openly about addiction, how upset he was with himself, that he wanted rehab and to start therapy. He shared that he had a strong family behind him. He asked for antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, which he had not been on before, but he was open to now because he was struggling with detoxing and he had spinning thoughts. Brennan emerged from that 51 minutes to share that he had an in-person intake appointment with Kaiser, the first available, in 29 days. Our family assured Brennan, who had been the keynote speaker at his high school MLK assembly, who had testified for marriage equality twice in front of our Congress, that he had done an amazing job self-advocating and that 29 days was unacceptable and it was time for some severe parental freak out. And so Brennan agreed that we could do that, and his dad called Kaiser, and Mike called and he shared our needs and our concerns, and we were told that because Brennan was 20, we needed a signed release. When the doors of Kaiser opened for business the next morning, there stood Brennan, and he signed our release with all of our names. His dad and I began calling day after day with Brennan. I woke him up before work, and we were told to call again. We're on the wait list. A bed will become available. I worried about my son. I asked Brennan if we should just go to an ER. I asked him outright, are you suicidal? No, Mom. I'm home with you. I would never do that to my brother and my little sister. He took Laura in his arms, and he promised her. He said, I'm okay. Help is coming. I would never do that. I believed him. We believed him as a family, and he believed himself. More calls to Kaiser day after day, but 29 days is a really long time to be lied to. I now know from my computer search of Brennan's computer that he had relapsed. He was really struggling. He looked up what happens to a suicidal person in Washington if you go to the ER. And he uncovered horror stories that frightened him. Forced medication, involuntary commitment, being locked in a room until somebody somewhere would open up with a bed. He was terrified. And so my beautiful boy then started Googling where to buy a gun. And on September 10th, I sat on the porch swing with Brennan. He looked tired and his eyes were weary, and I took his beautiful face in my hands and I said, thankfully, everything a mother would want to say had she known it was her last conversation with her child. I told him it's okay to rest. I told him how proud I am, that this is a hard, hard battle. I told him help was coming soon. It's okay to take a break from college, just focus on getting healthy. He assured me, Mom, I'm just tired. I'll go to bed as soon as I'm done texting my girlfriend. So I came out 30 minutes later. I nagged him to bed with an I love you and a hug. And the next day, Brennan, he drove to a pawn shop in Vancouver, which happened to be owned by another assistant principal. And there, her 20-year-old son sold my 20-year-old son a 12-gauge shotgun legally in under 5 minutes. Brennan walked across the street to a Sportsman's Warehouse, and for the price of a Happy Meal these days, $4.99, he purchased the bullets. In under 10 minutes, my child was armed. Within 2 hours, my beautiful son lay dead in the Tillamook forest. Had Brennan been homicidal instead of suicidal, my school might have been the next Sandy Hook. Left in the car was a 5-page, single-spaced, grammatically correct typewritten letter of love and gratitude. He just couldn't hold out anymore for promised help that never came. 29 days for an in-person mental health appointment in rehab. 5 minutes to arm yourself to buy a gun legally on your lowest day. I have saved everyone else's children with far less effort, but I could not save my own. A week after the funeral, in 2 states, we had 2 of them, I went to collect my son's belongings. The sheriff said, "I'm so sorry for your loss, ma'am," and informed me, "This is your property now, don't worry, it's empty." As she handed me this evidence box, which I have now co-opted in a moment of Mod Podge craftiness, made it my own. But in this box, if you'll hold it, that's my son. She handed me the 12-gauge shotgun and the remaining bullets, and she said, "Ma'am, this is your property now." And in my greatest despair and devastation, I became a gun owner in Washington State. My story, it could be any of your story. My son could be your child. So how do you protect your family? Support gun safety classes and training in your schools. Contact your PTA. Support extreme risk protection orders, like the successful ballot initiative here in Washington, 1491, that allows families to go before the courts to stop their suicidal or homicidal family member from acquiring a gun. Get involved in the movement to end gun violence and help ensure that no other parent goes through our heartbreak. Talk to your legislators often about gun safety, common sense gun legislations, and the need for greater access and funding for mental health. You can help me honor Brennan today by taking out your phone. If you've not already, texted 644-33, the word honor, HONOR. That is how you'll get involved with Every Town for gun safety and Moms Demand Action. Stand with us. And lastly, tell my son, my beautiful son, Brennan Matthews' story to everyone parenting teenagers. Talk about suicide and band together to demand less access to guns and more access to mental health and addiction medicine. Thank you for listening, and thank you for standing with us.